Remake Rewind.
Thank you for listening to Remake Rewind, the podcast where we decide if remakes or reboots should have happened. I'm Mike. As always, with me, I've got my two co-hosts. I've got Double D. How are you doing, Double D?
Yo, I'm doing pretty good, Mike.
I'm glad to hear it. And we've got Alice. How you doing, Alice?
Hello.
Alice also goes by Alex, but his preferred nickname now is Alice, so we're going to respect that decision.
Nope, none of that was true.
Pretty sure if we go back the last 3 episodes, there is a record of this. And I'm just going to respect the continuity of the podcast and respect the wishes of our listeners and call you Alice.
Cut it.
Anyway, here's another episode. We went to the theaters this week to watch a brand new movie. What are we covering, guys?
Oh, yeah. We covered Child's Play.
Yes, we did. What is your guys' history with these movies? Have you guys seen the originals?
Yes, I have seen the original multiple times. Actually, I'm pretty sure my older brothers were too scared to watch it alone, so they made me watch it with them. And it came out, obviously, before I was born, so I didn't see it in theaters or anything, but we definitely watched it, and I was deathly afraid of it as a child because I was afraid of all the horror movies. But, yeah, I've seen it a lot of times.
What about you, Alex?
Similar. Like I don't remember watching the original, but the sequel I remember watching as a kid, and that scared the crap out of me.
I remember the sequel more than I remember the second one. So I definitely remember the second one. I've definitely seen this first one. Like I definitely remembered the scene when like he goes into the ghetto and he's like on the bus by himself. I remember that, and I remember like the first time an adult sees him actually talk when like the mom's like threatening to throw him in the fire.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, "You filthy whore, you fucking bitch, don't fuck with me." Like he just goes from like 0 to 100. So like I remember those two little bits, but other than that, like I don't really remember it. I'm more familiar with the later ones, like Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky. So there was 7 original movies. The first 5 went to theaters, I believe. So I think Bride of Chucky or Seed of or Child of Chucky or Seed of Chucky, whatever that one's called, were the last ones. And then there was 2 that were direct to DVD. And then now we have this reboot, which I'm really excited to talk about. I was kind of weary about it, but I'm actually really excited to talk about both of these films. So, are you guys ready? Who's got a synopsis?
I've got a synopsis for the first one. Here we go. This one is from Chris Hobson.
Hello, Chris.
When Charles Lee Ray needs to get a quick escape from cop Mike Norris, he takes his soul and buries it into playful, seemingly good guy doll Chucky. Little does he know, a little boy by the name of Andy Barclay will be the new owner of him soon to come. Charles confides in Andy while he commits numerous murders, and once the adults accept Andy's story as a truth, it's too late.
Huh. Grammar aside, yeah, pretty close.
Yeah.
So, Chucky,
Charles
Lee Ray, do you know where that name is derived from?
No.
Charles Manson, Lee Harvey Oswald, and James Earl Ray. So it's Charles Manson. Everyone knows who that is.
Just
Lee Harvey Oswald, who killed John F. Kennedy, and James Earl Ray, who killed Martin Luther King. So that's where the 3 names from Charles Lee Ray came from. So, and then of course Chucky is short for Charles. So, what are some highlights for this movie for you guys?
I really like how the movie started. I didn't remember that at all.
The voodoo part?
That cop
or just the chase?
Yeah, the voodoo. The voodoo parts I didn't remember, and the cop chase I didn't remember at all. But I thought it started so strangely. I was like, "Am I watching the right movie?"
So I definitely remembered the first movie and second movie kind of combined. Like I definitely remember the end of the second movie where they're in like the toy factory.
Yeah, and it melts down.
I thought that was the end of this, and then I remember him going on like a train or a subway or bus or whatever, and going to like the ghetto so Chucky can try to find his like partner. And I definitely remembered the voodoo scene when he like tortures the guy with the voodoo doll. But I didn't know the ending of this movie. Like I completely forgot about the burnt Chucky at the end of the movie. the gross burnt Chucky, and I didn't remember he becomes more human the longer he's in that form. I completely forgot about that, and I guess it kind of makes sense because the Chucky that I remember, at least the Chucky you see on like TV shirts, and if you go to like Hot Topic and you see a Chucky doll, it's always the one with like the scars and the stitches that comes from like Bride of Chucky, like the later movies, which I think is a really cool looking like character. It kind of makes sense that he would have like scar tissue and everything, because I remember in Bride of Chucky, there's a scene when like they go to have sex and he's like, I'm an anatomically correct doll. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense, but I didn't realize they became more human, and he actually has like blood and everything in it. So I thought he was just a doll. And he was, but then he becomes more human. And
the longer
originally, like the way that this movie was originally going to start was completely different. So originally the doll was going to be more lifelike, in that it was going to be a doll that it actually had like synthetic skin and synthetic blood, where you could like, if the doll got damaged, you could go buy official like good buddy or good boy. What is it? What's the
good guy?
Good guy. You could buy good guy band-aids to heal the wounds and everything like that. And what was going to happen was the doll was a little bit, I don't know exactly, because obviously this movie didn't actually come to fruition, but what was going to happen was, what was going to cause Chucky to come to life was he was going to make like a Blood Brothers pack with Andy, and the toy blood was going to mix with the human blood and make him come alive. So that was the original.
I think they made the right choice.
Yeah, so that was kind of the original idea. The other thing was like,
would you buy your child a doll with blood?
No, because like you'll get the disturbed child who will like make it bleed on purpose, and if it, a lot of other kids would like do exactly what he did, like, oh, blood buddies. No, it's just a bad idea, and it's just disturbing. Yeah, totally. So no, that I would not do that.
The question I had is like, because in the beginning he uses his bloody hands to transfer the body into the Chucky doll.
There's no blood on the doll.
Yeah, I was why did they package it back up and just like, Well,
my question is, why did he go back into the box? So I guess we should kind of like go through the story a little bit. So, there's the big chase scene, and like that chase scene is pretty interesting. Like once he's in the toy store and he gets shot, he's just like, I gotta find something. I gotta find somebody. I gotta find, like, he just keeps saying, I need to find someone. I need to find somebody. I need to find somebody. And then, he just, as he's bleeding out, dying, he looks at the doll, laughs, and then he does his little, like, Ugo Gwe Gwe Fa Yu Tao, kind of like voodoo magic, and laughs and puts himself in the doll, and then lightning strikes and blows up the entire store. Which was absurd. And you see like the cop go flying out the window or something like that. And then my question is, we don't know the exact timeline. Once Andy gets Chucky, the next day Chucky has him ditch school and go to the partner's house in like the ghetto. And then the following day is like when everything goes to hell, the climax of the movie. So once the kid's involved, it's only 2 days. But how long was it between him dying and him getting him?
And him
so
getting sold?
It seemed like it was pretty quick, because they were still talking about him on the news the first night that Andy had the doll. Maybe it's a matter of maybe it was only 1 day. Maybe this whole movie takes place only over 2 or 3 days. But either way, why was he in the packaging? Why did he stick around in the packaging while like the homeless guy had him? And then why did he stick around with the kid for so long?
Yeah, like I was also thinking, like, why wouldn't he just dip? Like, why?
Maybe he needed the cover.
That was the only thing I could think of, was that maybe he needed the cover. He can't just be walking around the city. It makes more sense that he's walking around with a kid. Like it would make.
I would think that the peddler tried to put him back in the box for more resale value.
I could see that, but why would he let the peddler do that? When his first opportunity with an adult alone, like he killed the mom's friend Maggie for no reason. For no reason at all.
Yeah.
Because she was a dirty whore and she deserved it.
No, he said she was a bitch.
Oh, something like that.
The dirty whore was the mother.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah, the thing that's interesting in this was the other thing that this movie was going to do originally was be a little bit more ambiguous and not show the beginning, like the part of the movie with the voodoo thing, and make it look like Andy potentially did kill the adults,
Oh God.
and then it's revealed
I
later
think I
on in the
would've
movie.
liked that,
Yeah,
actually.
because I mean, it's obviously very explicit, and like, what's interesting was when I was watching this movie initially, I thought, I'm like, man, this kind of is shitty. I remember it looking really cool and the doll looking really cool.
I think that's the later
And-
ones though.
No, even this, I think by the end, I thought the doll looked really cool once it actually started talking.
I think
I
they
thought
did
it
a good
was-
job. Something about the dolls in general. I think they're just inherently
Yeah,
creepy.
absolutely. But like the first half hour of the movie, 45 minutes of the movie, nothing would really happen. You would just, the kid would hold the doll up to his mouth or his head, and he would say something along the line like, "Oh, Chucky wants to watch the 9 o'clock news," and then he'd be like, "Chucky wants to do this," so you wouldn't actually hear it, and you would just hold the doll, and then, initially you would just see, the footprints in the sugar that he spilled. It wasn't until the mom threatened to throw him in the fire is when we actually really saw him moving around. So,
Right.
initially I was like, man, maybe this movie is not as good as I remember. Maybe it's like really cheap because we're not seeing the doll at all. But then once it gets going, there's only a few scenes where I think it looks bad. What did you guys think of the special effects in that regards?
I thought they did it pretty well. I really liked the I guess anonymity they left on him. Like they did a lot of scenes where he's like creeping around corners. I really like those POV
It's
shots.
like
of
Yeah,
him,
me too.
Halloween.
like creeping around. Those were a lot of fun.
The only
so-
thing that I think didn't look good, and so the way they did this is they did a mix of animatronics and puppetry, and then they also had at certain points like child actors portray him, and they
Yeah.
just did interesting camera shots, or they had little people. And there's one scene like when he's actually burning, it's a little person with a mask, and so the head looks massive. So there's just like one shot where I'm like, that looked terrible, and it took me out because you could tell that it was a little person.
You could see the end of the
Yeah,
mask,
it
too.
it just looked really wonky. But other than that, like I thought it looked really good, and like the animatronics, there wasn't much of a delay between like the guy's speech and the actual moving of the mouth. They did a really great job with that. I was actually really impressed with how well this movie held up in that regards, because I expected it to be really cheesy and cheap, and it wasn't. Don't get me wrong, it was cheesy, but I thought the last half hour, when he's actually going around and trying to get Andy and possess him, I thought it was actually really good. I thought it was creepy, and it was a little suspenseful. I kind of got my heart racing a little bit.
I loved it. I had a great time
Yeah,
watching it.
I did too. Any highlights that you guys want to bring up on this one?
I do want to talk about how this child was let run around the damn city by himself. Like
No
no
adult
one
stops
tries
him.
to intervene.
Oh,
at
that's
all.
that's normal. A
just
kid
walking around
taking
with-
the subway.
And there's so many of these kids walking around with this giant
Buddy
fucking doll.
Right.
Like
So yeah, the bus driver doesn't
Like
question
this-
this kid going from like a predominantly white neighborhood to a predominantly ghetto neighborhood that's like rat infested.
by himself with an expensive.
Hey, by the
doll.
way, this kid is a criminal.
this was $100
Yeah.
doll.
Yeah.
This kid is a criminal, by the way.
Yeah.
So
Why?
Chucky asks him to bring him to take the L bus to this area, right? And so once he gets into the ghetto, he puts Chucky in a doll. He's like, "Stay here, Chucky," and then he's like, "I'm gonna go pee."
gonna go
yeah, and then
tinkle.
he does public urination. He's a criminal.
Well, he's also aiding and abetting.
Well, he didn't know that. Aiding and abetting implies that you knew.
Maybe
I
he
don't
did
think
know.
He probably
Well,
Chucky probably.
I
told
mean,
him.
if he told Andy he was going to kill him,
Yeah, but
I'm sure he
I'm
told him that
curious
he
as to
killed
when that
people.
actually happened, because you only hear the whispers, and there's a point when the Aunt Maggie is chastising him for turning on the TV and putting Chucky there, when he's like, "I didn't do it, I swear." And then like the next day or later that night when the mom comes home and is talking to the cops, like Andy is like, "Yeah, Chucky says she was a bitch and deserved it. I got what she deserved." It's like, Jesus Christ.
this because I remember the later films more, and they definitely were more comical, and this one was actually
Yeah, so they
not as fun. This is
No,
like,
this is a straight horror
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
So I was reading up on it because my parents didn't let me watch these movies as a kid. I saw them more on TV, which were like edited versions. So I definitely saw the first one and the second one, and I vaguely remember the third one because it was in a military school. But I don't really remember that one. I just remember the military school aspect of it. And I definitely wasn't allowed to watch Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky. Although I did see Bride of Chucky later, like once again on cable TV in like high school. So I definitely saw watered down versions of these. but I went through like Wikipedia after watching both this one and the 2019 version, which we'll talk about later. And the first one was like straight like a horror movie. The second one added comedic elements, but it was still considered more like a horror movie. The third one, same thing. It was kind of on the lines of the second one. And then Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, and Curse of Chucky. I think there's one other one.
Chucky.
I think there's two more.
Yeah.
I think there's two more after
The Cult and Curse of Chucky.
Yeah. So Curse of Chucky and the Cult of Chucky went back to being just a straight horror film. And then what ended up happening, and that came out in like 2015, I think. And then what's weird about this, I guess, do you guys have anything else you guys want to talk about this one before we kind of move on to the second one and the history of the series?
Not
Nothing
really.
specific
I mean, I
in
really
this
like the
house.
kid. I think the kid's great. Like the beginning, him making dinner and stuff. I mean, breakfast.
Oh yeah, just making a mess and just putting a ton of extra sugar in the sugary cereal.
Like I'm pretty
and just
sure
spilling
Cup
everywhere.
of butter on that
this
toast.
movie,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
if I had a kid and like I saw my kid whispering, I'd be like, oh shit, like, God, cut that shit out.
Actually, I do want to talk about the end because, like, throughout the movie, Andy doesn't really seem too worried about Chucky. Even when he's like, Chucky told me if I told anybody about him, he'd kill me. Like, he still seems to care. And then at the end of the movie, so the whole thing is he ends up torturing the voodoo guy who taught him the spell. And the voodoo guy's like, I'm not going to tell you anything because you perverted my religion. And then he ends up killing him with the voodoo doll. But he's told that the first person who learns the secret, he can actually swap souls or swap bodies with him. So, the last, half hour, 40 minutes of the movie is Chucky trying to possess Andy. And so they're, just trying to kill this thing in the apartment. And I thought that whole thing was interesting. Like, he goes to kill the cop in the car, right? And then the cop burns him with, like, the cigarette lighter. And he realizes he can feel pain. And then, they shoot him a bunch of times. And then they burn him. And then at the end, the partner shows up to try to, like, save the day. And he's just like, they're like, don't touch the doll. Don't do anything. And then he, like, picks up the head.
Still fucking picks
Pops it
the
up. He's
head.
like, "Whoa," like making jokes.
I do have a question about that though. When not the picking up, but when they burned him and shot him a bunch of times, when the mom shot him in the back, just the body, right? She shot him in like the square of the back
Right.
twice. And how did she not shoot
I
the
don't know.
heart
So
there?
she misses. And then he gets burned, and then, like, he's still walking around burned, and she, like, blows off his arm, blows off a leg, blows off the other arm. And, he's fine. And then, so you think he's shoots his head off, so you think he's fine. And then the cop's partner shows up, puts the head up on the TV, and then somehow Chucky gets in the vents, pops out, and is, like, choking the
Choking
cop.
him.
He's
So
choking
then
him
he ends
out.
up, like,
I thought he was gonna like rip out. His
yeah,
fucking
it throws
throat.
him on the ground, and then, like, the cop shoots him through the chest, and, like, the heart explodes, and you see blood splatter. Like, that was legitimately creepy, and I did not remember this burned doll at all. And I thought that looked incredible. But what I liked was when they
It looked
threw him in
great.
the fireplace, like, the mom's, like, leaning up against the fence, and he's, like, trying to get back in, and then,
Oh, that one-liner.
yeah, so Andy's initially just, like, staring at the
Yeah.
mom like a sociopath, like, he doesn't care. And then the mom's like, Andy, help me, get me the matches. And so he goes and brings the match, and Chucky's like, no, Andy, we're friends till the end, remember? And then Andy's like, this is the end, and, like, throws the match in.
This is the end, friend.
This is the end, friend.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I knew he
That's
wasn't going to be
great.
dead at that moment, but, like, I remember this movie completely different. Like, I thought, oh, his soul just jumps around and from doll to doll, and ultimately what ends up happening, the series, I guess we're ready to kind of transition to the remake from this year, but the way we got here is a little interesting. So the series was done with MGM, the first movie, and then MGM got purchased by some, like, European company temporarily, and that company wasn't into like the horror or slasher film genre at all, so they were just gonna kill the project. And it was already in production, like, it was like 2/3 of the way through production, and so studios were bidding on it, and so Universal wasn't going to bid on it, but Steven Spielberg was still really working with them. And Steven Spielberg thought that the first Chucky was a great movie and convinced the executives at Universal to bid on it, and they ended up winning. Now, what's weird is MGM retained the rights to the first movie. And then, so the original creator actually wrote all 7 of the original movies.
I thought that was
and they had
amazing. Like, I didn't realize it was the same guy throughout the whole series.
It was the same guy from beginning to end. And then Brad Dourif, who plays Wormtongue in The Lord of the Rings, does the live action, or does the human form of Charles Lee Ray in this, and then he does the voice for all 7. And then what ended up happening was about a year and a half ago, what's through some weird fluke with the rights. So once again, the first movie, the rights are owned by MGM. MGM sold the rights to like Orion Studios, which is actually who did the original RoboCop movie. They had the rights to just the first movie, so they're doing the remake. Currently in development to come out next year is a Child's Play TV series from the original creator that's also going to have the original Chucky voice, Brad Dourif, comes out next year and is going to continue the story from the first 7 films. So we're essentially gonna have 2 Chucky universes coming out, you know, and this the new one's doing really well, so it's pretty much guaranteed it's gonna get some sort of sequel. But they don't really know exactly what they're gonna be able to do because of the way the rights work. They don't have access to anything beyond the first movie, so everything going forward has to be completely original, or they can get sued. Because apparently, in the 2019 one that we're about to talk about, they had they had to run it by the guy who owns the overall series, and they made them take out a couple deaths because they were too reminiscent of ones from the second and third movie. So we're going to be in this like weird murky area going forward if this movie does well enough to warrant a sequel. So with that being said, I guess we should get a synopsis.
All right.
2019
This is
Child's
for
Play.
the new one. I don't know who it's from. No name. But after moving to a new city, young Andy Barclay receives a special present from his mother, a seemingly innocent buddy doll that becomes his best friend. When the doll suddenly takes on a life of its own, Andy unites with other neighborhood children to stop the sinister toy from wreaking bloody havoc.
Yeah, I guess. So,
Fair.
how did you guys feel about it when you heard about this movie? Like, was this something you guys were interested in? Like, was this something you would have watched if we weren't doing the podcast?
Yeah, I would have watched it probably on DVD when it came out on DVD, but I wouldn't have gotten it.
I probably wouldn't have watched this movie at all. Like, I'm not really into, like, scary movies. But, I mean, I'm just going to say off the top, I actually really enjoyed this film.
Well, that's
Did
good.
you guys not like it?
It was
we'll
alright.
talk about it. We'll get into it.
I wasn't a big.
I think the biggest thing that was weird is when I found out it was going to be like an AI movie. Initially, I was like, "Oh, that's been done," you know. And I was kind of like a little worried because it's like already it's a remake, so it's not original. And then doing the like AI gone bad is just another layer of not being original. So I was kind of thinking this was going to be dumb. And you know, when they released the image of Chucky, I didn't really like the design either.
So I haven't seen any trailer or promotional art for this. And then when I first saw Chucky, I was like, I did it subconsciously, but I was like, oh shit, I said that like out loud. I was like, oh, my bad. Cause like, it looks rough. Like,
and what's weird is it did look weird. So I did see a trailer for it, and the trailer I actually thought made it look pretty decent. The first couple images that were released kind of made it look like the Stewie's brother in Family Guy.
Yeah.
I can't remember the character's name, but you know, the other one from Peter's sperm that somehow got out. But it kind of reminded me of him. And then, but in stills, I thought it looked fine. In this movie, you know, the head is a little big and weird. And initially, I thought it looked.
It's weird.
I thought it looked cheaper than the original did. Like. And I'm so used to the later Chucky, you know, from pop culture. Even if you haven't seen those movies, you see the Chucky dolls, you see the TV shirt or the shirts and everything like that. I think the Chucky doll from like Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, I think looks rad. Like it looks really cool. And I saw this and I was like, this looks worse. But as the movie got on, I actually really started to dig the design. Like I understood what they were going for. And I kind of liked it.
I got it. It's kind of looks like those like Japanese robots you see that they make.
Absolutely,
but
with like the big eyes. I just feel like
it's too much. Yeah,
it's so weird.
It's definitely weird.
I mean, I wouldn't buy a thing.
Right, and I think that's kind of the point. Is like and there's the scene when he decides to scare the mom's boyfriend and it's trying to do these weird facial things, and I'm like, I kind of get it. Like they're trying to make it a little bit more realistic and like what a doll could actually do that would be somewhat affordable, because obviously like the animatronic levels of the original Chucky, even in the first movie, that would be there's no way anybody would ever be able to afford that. Like that would be tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Right. And so obviously some people would be able to afford it, but that's all remote control. So like this, I bought that, okay, this would be something that you could presumably make for, a couple $100s. So I kind of got that.
Yeah, I guess at that point, yeah,
so
that makes more sense.
from a stylistic standpoint, making it something that could be mass produced relatively cheaply kind of makes sense. And there was a point where an associate of my wife's was trying to make, or associate of Katrina, I don't know why I said my wife, like I've never said her name on this podcast before, was trying to do like a...
Wait, who's Katrina?
was trying to open up like a robot store. And, I kind of looked at some stuff for like robots that were coming out, and there were things that were kind of similar. So, this isn't super unbelievable. So I kind of like got into the design by the end of the movie. It definitely took a little bit, but by the end of the movie, I was totally on board with this Chucky. The only real problem I had with this movie was the first 5 minutes of the film. The origin of Chucky is just a disgruntled
ridiculous.
employee. So basically, it's an AI, and what happened was they're, in some plant in, somewhere in Asia, presumably China.
Vietnam.
Oh, did it say Vietnam?
Yeah.
Okay. So in Vietnam, some foreman like slaps a worker and is like, "You're fired, but finish this one doll."
I'm firing you, but
and
do this one last thing.
And so the guy goes through and manually deletes all the safeguards, to prevent it from using profanity and prevent it from doing violence and whatnot. Like the biggest thing that you kind of have to, kind of, suspend your disbelief is that one, all of these dolls are being programmed one by one. Is absurd.
And they were like brushing their hair.
Yeah, like it would be like these chips would be pre-programmed. Like that would be something that could be completely automated. Like having these chips made, already having the program on there. I could buy maybe somebody having to physically put it in the doll, but it's absurd that one guy would be able to just go through and take this off and it not get flagged. Like there's just I didn't believe that.
Or code that quickly.
How much?
Well, it wasn't even coding. Like it was literally just menus. Like it was something built into
like code.
The user interface that you could.
It had syntax and stuff,
But I mean, I think that was just I think he was just trying to get around like maybe an admin menu that he wasn't supposed to have, because ultimately it had a little thing like disable this, yes. Disable this, yes. Disable this. Like he's not coding a full user. Yeah, he's not coding a full user interface. Like. I felt like he was probably hacking to get around the safeguards that he shouldn't have access to. But either way, like it's absurd that one, that he was able to do that, and two, that it's not something that's flagged. Like you think this whole thing is supposed to be like an Alexa thing and connected to a database at all times. So, you think it would be flagged immediately.
Like a question, like how much more different would this film had been if it was like, if we didn't know it was a Child's Play movie, they didn't make it look like Chucky, and it was like this doll that happened to break the rules, and like he's learning with his friends, and then it turns out to be Chucky, kind of like reveal.
I mean, I don't know how you would get people into the theater to see that, and I think people would draw the comparison anyway. So my biggest thing, and we talk about remakes and like how we, at the end when we say, did this remake need to happen? We talk about, did it do enough differently, or did it pay enough homage to the original? And, a lot of people complain that there's not enough original stuff out there, and remakes, shouldn't happen, blah, 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 blah. I gotta say, I do appreciate this big swing that this took. Even though, it is an AI kind of thing, I actually felt that they did enough unique stuff in this, I'd rather them take a big swing and miss than, not take any chances. And I gotta say, there's a lot of things I like. Like, one of the big differences in this is Chucky wasn't innately evil, right?
No, he learned it.
And even the learning thing, like, it's still, the generic, like, AI, misinterpreting things and everything. But in this, like, his whole sole motivation is he loves Andy so much that he
Yeah.
just wants initially, like, he kills because he is concerned for Andy. Like, so as soon as I saw the cat, like, I knew that cat was gone. Like,
Yep.
as soon as, like, but, like, this cat scratches Andy, and Chucky's eyes turn red, and then Andy goes to the bathroom to clean up, and he comes back, and Chucky's choking the cat. And everything, and then he explains, like, he hurt you, and you're my best friend, and I'm supposed to do anything for you. So I was trying to, like,
Choke him
this
out.
from happening again, right? So it's like, as fucked up as it is, like, it's almost sweet. And then later on, he, you know, when he actually did kill the cat, that was
Dude, there's no way I'm protecting that.
right,
anymore.
right.
Like,
So that was another, you know, but I can kind of get, like, I think the kid thought maybe he would have gotten in trouble for not telling the mom earlier or something. Like, kids do stupid shit if they think they're going to get in trouble. I get it.
yeah, but if your doll kills something, you don't want
Right.
that
No,
doll
I
anymore.
agree with
Like,
you 100%. But I can kind of get
And
it
then
to an extent for a movie.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I get the fear of, you know, scalding
Right.
and stuff, but
So-
scolding,
It's
I mean,
hot.
sorry.
And then he also teaches him to mess with the kid, with the boyfriend who ends up, you know, not actually being a boyfriend. He's just having an affair. You know, and he, you know, decides to kill this guy. And you know, and that scene was, you know, pretty gnarly. But I think this movie was gory, but not overly gory to the point where. So I did appreciate that.
They didn't go into the detail of like how he ripped
Right.
his face off and stuff. but, like,
But you know, there were certain things I really liked. Like, I thought the kids were okay. I don't think the acting in this movie was incredible, but you know, the kids were good enough. I did like how, you know, the kids were realistic in that if they found, you know, this doll is a popular doll in this world. You know, it's basically like Siri or Alexa, but can move around and do other stuff. But you know, when they find this one that can swear, you know, they just keep trying to get it to say more things. Like, they get it to say dick cheese and stuff like that. And then they get it to try to stab this, like, stuffed animal and say, this is for Tupac. Like,
this is for Tupac.
kids would do that shit. And so I did appreciate the realism there. So, like, on, you know, any highlights for you guys, like, anything you guys want to go through on this? Because I've got a lot that I wrote down and want to talk about.
I felt, as far as like the AI stuff, I feel like he didn't even, in the beginning half of the movie, I feel like they didn't do that enough. I feel like they could have done a lot more to expand what he could do. Because once he got evil, pretty much, he was doing all.
Well,
I
he also
think what it
got
was is
because
they-
his thing was broken, and then
He
Yeah.
had a broken thing. So they talked about it, actually, what they can do. So, like, the opening of the movie was that
Yeah.
little, like, infomercial on, like, what Chucky can do. And everyone commented.
Right, but and then he didn't work at first, and then he updated him. So I feel like after he did the update, he should have been able to do it.
Well, no, he tried to. He was never actually able to get him to connect to the cloud. He
No,
he never was
yeah,
able
yeah.
to. He said it stopped
it said
working.
error or
So
something.
yeah, he didn't.
Oh.
He was never able to actually get it to connect to the cloud because it was literally a damaged unit. So not only did he he get mishandled by a disgruntled employee changing his code, but he also was damaged. So and that was the whole point. It was like when the mom returned it from the V-Mart or Z-Mart or whatever it was called, Z-Mart. And she goes, "Hey, what do you guys do with these ones that are super damaged?" And she like blackmails her boss into letting her keep it. She it was damaged, and she says, "Hey, this one's refurbished and broken, so don't be surprised if it doesn't work entirely." So it wasn't until the creepy janitor replaced like the battery and the network chip that it got all the powers.
Also, that's horrible customer service.
So-
Like-
Well,
Oh, yeah,
the
she's
problem
the
I had
worst.
with her customer service, and I wrote this down, was so the first time we see Aubrey Plaza as Karen, the mom, she is working at the store, and this like guy comes up, and legitimately this guy's a dick. And so he's just like, "I want to return this. I didn't realize this was a fucking ginger." And she's like, "Whoa, you can't say that." But she was obviously just being sarcastic. And he goes, and he mentions that he had to wait 3 weeks to get it. And he wants the blonde one, which is the new one. And she's like, "It's not my fault you couldn't read the box," and refuses to give him the money back. The next scene, when she has like this white woman come up to return it, she says she's had it for 3 weeks. It's open and damaged, and she returns it. Why would she not return it for the other guy when it's been 3 weeks?
She said she had it.
Yeah,
3
she said
weeks?
she had
Oh,
it for
really?
3 weeks. Yeah, so she said she's had it for 3 weeks and it doesn't work. Can I get my money back? So this woman had it for the same amount of time, had it opened, and it's broken, and she takes it back. But for this guy who didn't open it, who's just upset because he misread, even if it's his fault and he misread something, it's unopened. Take it back. He has a receipt.
Maybe she took it back because it was defective.
Maybe.
And he didn't say his was defective. It was just
yeah, but either way, if you have the receipt, like, you don't need to do that.
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here.
And the friend, you know, she points out immediately when she notices Chucky can say things he's not supposed to. She's like, "This is how the robot apocalypse
Well, that's
starts."
like as soon as they see him.
And so she the whole time's like a little uncomfortable. I did like the scene when they're watching, like, I think it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is what they're watching. And they're laughing at the gore and laughing at the guy getting stabbed, and then they're laughing at the one-liners. Chucky goes and grabs a knife because he sees them laughing at blood, so he's like, "Oh, this is funny," and he's gonna go stab the friend because he thought it would make them laugh.
Shit, yeah.
And then he accidentally cuts Andy, and he looks devastated. Like, you see him like looking sad. And he's like, "I'm so sorry, Andy." This Chucky, even though he's a robot AI, I think he's more relatable and has more depth than the original Chucky, which is a human, which is kind of absurd.
I mean, yeah, I don't know that I wanted to relate to this doll, though. I mean, like,
you don't necessarily want to, but I feel like you have a little bit more.
You're invested.
It has a little bit more impact and invest. Yeah, exactly. I feel a little bit more invested in the story because the kid bonded with him.
David, is that it's actually essentially the Terminator, but in a miniature form.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. It is to an extent.
Because like he's like in T2, he's teaching the Terminator how to be more human. He's teaching him different things. But this is like the different version. He's like, this is why I think it's funny, stabbing people. This is what I was like. It's just different.
Well, and it's different. And I do like how they show him learning stuff. So like, the kid is making a sandwich and he slices it in half and then he like stabs the knife into the cutting board, and Chucky, you know, does the stabbing motion. There's a point where he's like brushing his teeth and Chucky does the teeth brushing thing. Yeah. So he's learning stuff, you know, he learns this is for Tupac, and, you know, throughout the movie he repeats things that he learned from people. So like the janitor guy who's actually has cameras in everyone's apartments, who like found him in the garbage,
which
and put him back together.
Wasn't Jack Black, but I kept thinking, is that
totally
Jack Black?
My notes every time I refer to him is in my notes is not Jack Black. But so not Jack Black is this janitor guy who has cameras in everyone's, you know, apartments, and he like jerks off looking at Aubrey Plaza in the shower. But he ultimately finds Chucky after the kids destroy him. So after they kill Chucky kills the cat, and after he kills the mom's boyfriend, they ambush him and like rip his arc reactor out. And the janitor finds him and puts him back together. And so, you know, he says something like, "Let's open you up and see what's inside you." And Chucky uses that expression twice in the film. And then he also learns a couple things. Like, he watches Aubrey Plaza's character, Karen. There's a point when the doll isn't initially working, and she does this like hanging gesture, which actually foreshadows like Chucky hangs her at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But you know, there's some, I thought that was some pretty good foreshadowing. But to my original point, him being a little bit more relatable, like, he learns from Chucky. They legitimately become friends. You know, they're cracking jokes with each other. He wants to defend Andy by like killing the cat. And, you know, he has this breakdown when the boyfriend kind of yells at Andy, and Andy breaks down and is like, "I just wish he was gone. I wish he was gone. I wish he'd go away forever." So Chucky kills him because he isn't nice to Andy. So like, initially all of his kills are for protecting Andy.
Yeah.
And then it gets a little bit out of jealousy when he is like laying on the table and he sees the neighbor, and the neighbor's like, "Oh, Andy's my new best friend." So he kills her out of jealousy. So it's like, it almost feels justified in a perverted way because this AI is new and only has a very limited understanding of how the world works. And Andy is his whole world. So it's like, I kind of got, even though, you know, like I said earlier, I don't necessarily think the acting in this movie is great. The story, I felt, kind of got me into the story a little bit. And then it isn't until the very end of the movie when he kind of feels betrayed by Andy. You know, he gets cleaned up and he gets new clothes, and then he goes and pretends to be the neighbor's Chucky, and then he does things where he will kind of is setting up Andy. So like, everybody kind of thinks
he blackmails him too. Yeah,
he blackmails him by like playing recordings. of him like talking about the boyfriend who's dead. And then there's even a point where the kids are like, you know what? We've never actually seen Chucky do these things. Maybe Andy did do it. So like Chucky kind of sets it up and he's like, look, you should be my friend again, or I'm going to tell everybody you did this. Because once again, he'll do anything to be friends with Andy. And then at the end,
he's also trying to, because like I think he also says like he's trying to prove a point, like, hey, look, they're leaving you, but I would never leave you.
I would never do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so then really it's not until the very end where he gets this weird, where it's like, if you're not going to let me be your friend, then nobody can be your friend.
Yeah.
And so then he just goes on this like murder spree and he's killing everybody at the launch of Buddy 2. And what I thought was interesting, and this kind of teases where this could go in a sequel, because he has like the AI. So once he gets fixed, he kills the cop's mom with a, basically a robotic Uber, and then he sets up these drones and he puts like razor blades on drones and uses drones to kill people.
That was ridiculous.
But then he was able to control other Buddy dolls, and so Buddy 2, they mentioned that there's 5 variations, but we only see the blonde one.
Yeah.
The bear.
You see the blonde one, the bear, the ginger, and then you see like a brown one, like a person of color one. Like it's not, we don't see if it's black or Hispanic, but it's it has some color. But we never see the 5th one. And so the implication where my mind went is potentially Bride of Chucky for a sequel. Like maybe there's a female one.
That makes sense.
But who knows if they can actually do that, because like I mentioned earlier, the whole they only have rights to the first one. So I don't really know what they're going to do with the sequel, or if they can do a sequel or what. But, I kind of like that. And then, they go through and they're fighting, and, there's a RoboCop reference into this movie because it's by Orion Pictures.
Dead or alive.
There's a little cop car, dead or alive, you're coming with me. I thought that was funny. And so like the last 20 minutes or so, this just becomes like a generic slasher film. Like it's in like a shopping center, and like it shuts all the doors, and it's just killing indiscriminately. But once again, he's just so in love with Andy. Like there was a motivation in this beyond just killing. So I personally thought that was a more fulfilling story than the original one.
I mean, I agree with you. It makes more sense than the Voodoo doll, right? But
it makes more sense, and like I'm willing to take the Voodoo doll thing. What I'm not willing to accept from the first one is how long he was willing to wait. Like, you think he would just talk to the hobo guy or immediately just like tell the kid. Like, it was weird how passive this guy was as a, sociopathic killer.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't buy that. Where this, like, you suspend your disbelief because it's an AI movie, but this movie just felt realistic as a dog coming to life and killing people can be.
But also,
I thought this was pretty believable.
Once he does connect to
Skynet,
Kaslo,
yeah, Skynet, yeah.
Wouldn't he download the updates automatically and re-enable all his safeguards? Like,
well, I think it's to the actual processor chip. Like all that was connecting. The only thing he didn't have was the network chip to actually connect. He wasn't actually updating the software. He was literally just connecting to the cloud so he can talk to other devices.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, the implication on this, where it's, from a networking standpoint, is do all Chucky doll or Buddy dolls talk to each other, or once they're set up, they don't? Because, he was able to control all the other Buddy dolls.
Oh, yeah. What was up with that?
Did he be able to disable all those safeguards?
I guess he was able to, so I don't really understand how that worked. Or if it wasn't that I don't think they were actually acting independently. I think he was like all of those.
Remotely controlling it.
So, and that's where this opens up, different possibilities. It's almost like the end of Age of Ultron, where it's like you need to destroy every last Ultron bot, or Ultron will just get back into the internet. So,
dadgum interwebs.
Right. So, this one has like the little thing, you see one more dog, like they're going to do a recall, and it has a little thing like we at Kaslan, we found that we were not responsible for this at all, but we care about our customers, so we'll do a recall anyway.
But they do a recall of all the second edition ones.
Yeah, and then you see like the one doll its eyes light up again. So it's like, and it would make sense that once he's connected to the internet, that you really can't get rid of him unless you like wipe out the Kaslan servers. Yeah. So I'm I don't really know where this is going to go, if it's going to get a sequel. It's getting. It's getting mixed reviews, but I think it's getting more positive reviews than negative reviews. and it's already made its money back. This movie only cost like $40 million. So I don't see how this movie doesn't get a sequel. I'm just curious as to where it's gonna go.
Interwebs, but at that point, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that could happen.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it can go anywhere. It really can. The kids were kind of dumb in this, where they like wrap the guy's face on a watermelon, wrap it, and then they like give it to the
garbage chute is like fucking magic. Like everything just goes away once it's in there.
Yeah, they were just gonna throw it away. Yeah, that was a little strange.
I mean, it is a very kid thing to do, though. I feel like it's just like
throw stuff in the garbage.
But I still think just
like hide your
panic,
shame
but
somewhere and you
you
just throw it away.
But I think you would still, maybe want to throw it in like a backpack and throw it away in a dumpster that's not in your house.
Yeah, I totally would. And also, wouldn't it have started to like smell?
Yeah,
that's
that was
the
the other
thing.
thing.
I was like, yeah, she's just
it would start to
sitting
decompose.
there. Yeah.
And once again, we don't know exactly how many days. It could have been like the next day that he went over to the neighbor's house for dinner to try to get it back. But we don't really know how long this actually took place. This could be.
It's because he didn't have any immediacy. He was like, "Oh, I have until Friday to get it."
yeah, he did say that. Well, actually, I think it was the full. Well, that was till his birthday. Yeah, we don't really know. So this movie could have taken place over several weeks, or it could be several days. We really don't know. So we know that Mike, the detective, goes to his mom's house at least once a week. So presumably, at the very least, this movie is over the course of a week and a half. But it could be weeks that he developed this friendship with Chucky before.
Chucky, yeah, that could have been a while.
Yeah, before he actually interacted with the kid, his neighbors. So we don't really know the timeline of this movie, but I did find the story to be interesting. Like, I thought that with all the AI stuff, I thought I rolled my eyes when I heard this was gonna be AI. But I also just thinking about it, the voodoo thing doesn't really make sense, that you have a human in this doll and, it just hangs out and pretends. That would be really boring. And that's just not really how we work.
I could have done it.
This is for...
So, did you guys like Mark Hamill as
I did.
Chucky?
It was a little jokery, a little bit like a robotic Joker, but I did like Mark Hamill. As the voice of Chucky. I did like how you get to name the doll, and so he's like, "What's my name?" And then the kid goes, "Han Solo." You're making a Star Wars reference, and he goes, "Did you say Chucky?"
I love it.
God, when the guy died, that scene was gnarly. Double compound fracture, then getting his head cut off, cut into
flower mower thing.
I did think it was interesting when he pulled the face off. He also took a couple of teeth.
I thought that face on the watermelon looked amazing.
This movie, what's interesting is initially, like I said, it looked cheaper with the doll, but ultimately I kind of liked it, the weird robotic motions as its face would twitch to get into position. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much more to say about this movie. I thought the kill, it did. I think the only thing I'd have to say that I didn't necessarily like was because it is hooked up to the cloud and he's able to control things 2 out of the 3 deaths, major ones, because once it gets into the mall and you see things you just see people dropping to the ground because drones hit them, or a Chucky doll throws something at somebody, or it jumped off of a shelf and stabbed a guy in the neck. But for the major deaths where we actually get a build up, so there's 3 deaths, big ones, and 2 out of the 3 were done remotely. So one was a car that he basically remote controlled and made it crash before he jumped in and just stabbed her. And then the other guy was, he remote accessed a table saw, and then he remote accessed the thermostat to turn on the pipe, make the pipe really hot, because the guy was hanging from a pipe to make him fall on the table saw. It's it's all automated, and it's it's almost like Watch Dogs, the video game.
Yeah.
So it's almost like Terminator and Watch Dogs combined. I don't know how, when you do a sequel to this movie, do you lean more heavily into the being connected to the cloud and being able to control all the stuff, or do you lean more into him being a little person that can run around and kill people? I don't really know, but I do feel like the deaths were, I don't know if they were less interesting or not. Like I think killing the boyfriend was the best
Yeah.
murder scene.
The thing is, like, I feel like once he got connected to the internet, the deaths became kind of more not lazy, but like kind of feels
They're
lackluster.
less
Like,
satisfying.
I agree.
He could have done more. Like, you know how Andy had a hearing aid and he was able to connect to it? What if he was like playing sounds, messing with Andy into his hearing aid?
He wasn't playing with the hearing aid connected. He was playing with one of the Casplan speakers.
The Bluetooth speaker, yeah. But then like he could have done more, where like maybe like make him think that he was hearing his mom and he'll come into the room or something like that. But it was actually
I agree. Like there are other ways, and maybe that's what happens in the sequels. I don't know. And maybe in the sequels you end up with like an army of the dolls. Like I don't really know. Like, and that's the thing that I think is interesting about this new direction for the series is it really can go anywhere now.
But I mean, also to both your points, really, if you're getting connected to the cloud and internet, this basically has to go Terminator route.
Right.
There aren't many options unless he really sticks to trying to be Andy's friend. Like that's his end goal. That there's no way this doesn't turn into Terminator.
Yeah, and I'm just curious to how you go that way again. Like, does he just keep going after Andy and like a new doll shows up every day until like I don't know, or does like Casplan bring Andy in to apologize and like he's stuck at the Casplan factory or something? Like it could go anywhere, and that's where I think this is interesting, is that it really can go anywhere else, because basically the other Chucky movies just got around to like, oh well, we need to find a new way for me to get into a new body or possess a different body. Like it was always the same thing, like I'm trying to get into a human body. Where this, like, it really can, I see a lot more potential in this, and maybe the next time around it gets a bigger budget and maybe it can get slightly better, because I don't necessarily think the lead kid was a good actor. He wasn't terrible, but I don't think he was good.
Was he in? He was in something else. I can't.
I'm sure he was.
What? I don't know where I recognize him from.
IMDb, motherfucker. Motherfucker.
I don't know. There's nothing really stand out. But what's the question, or what's the answer to the question?
I think this was a good remake.
But did it
now,
need to be remade?
I think every franchise like this, whether it's we've had two different Friday the 13th remakes already. We've had now two Halloween ones, depending on how you look at it. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think, has been remade twice. Freddy Krueger's had one, and they're already working on another. I don't think it's wrong to necessarily try this again for a new audience. It's now been 30 years since the original. So yeah. I think this was, they took a big swing by changing it up completely, to an AI. And I think they, at the very least, they got a base hit. Do I think they slam, it's a, home run out of the park? No, but they got on base, and, I'm willing to, I'm actually really interested in this and willing to see where it goes. So I say this is a good remake. Like, it got me interested in, and I do want to see more. Like, I really see potential on, like, as soon as I got out of it, I was just like, dude, what's going to happen next? And, like, I stayed for the credits waiting for a tease, and it was just the song, like, a song, but I'm willing to watch another one of these movies.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, if the opportunity presented itself, I would watch another one of these movies. But
now I have A-list, from AMC. So like, if another one of these, let's say we're 2 years in the future, and a sequel came out, like this movie bought me enough bought enough goodwill that I would probably go see a sequel in theaters.
I don't know that I would. I'd probably just wait. But
I mean, I have the A-list.
I think that's true. But I don't know. I prefer the maniacal serial killer spirit voodoo Chucky over this AI Chucky.
Yeah, I'm torn on that, because I get where you're saying. It's that human element. Like this, the original Chucky was a much more, like, it's an original idea and everything. It's just it devolved into something stupid. Like it became like a parody of itself by the end.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of needed to do something drastic. I think you needed to do something different, but still have the spirit. And the spirit of the movie, I think, is having this doll that's alive. Adults don't think it's real. The kids think it's real. And you have, there's points where people legitimately thought the kid was the killer. And I think that's the spirit of the movie, is like the ambiguity, the people not believing it's true. And I think it did exactly what a remake should do. Like, it paid homage to the original. The spirit of the movie is there, but it did enough different for it to not just be the same damn movie.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I do agree with the fact that it did well for itself, right? It's not a bad movie per se. It's just I prefer the original.
Yeah.
For me,
I can
it's
see
no.
why.
But I mean, Alex, you're the tiebreaker here.
All right. So I did kind of like this movie for the reasons I stated. It's a tiny Terminator. But I wasn't a really huge fan of Child's Play. I gotta be honest, to begin with. So
yeah, I agree. I'm in that same boat. Like, it wasn't a big part of my childhood or my history. Like, I've seen bits and pieces. I actually watched this one first, the newer one, which is not normally how I do it. I just happen to have time, so I watched the newer one first. And I actually did enjoy the original one this time around, but I just think that there's enough in the original that doesn't make sense. Like, I was pleasantly surprised by the special effects holding up, but I'm not willing to suspend my disbelief as much with the Voodoo one as I was able to with the AI one. But that's just
Wait,
me.
so what's your answer, Alex?
Did it have to be remade? Not. Did I like this? Yeah.
Once again, no remake has to be made, but
I mean,
should it have?
there's like, oh, this is like, it has potential.
did it add value? Did it do enough different? Like, was it worth watching? That's really what I mean. Well, the answer to the question will always be, does it need a remake? No. The answer is always going to be no. Nothing needs to be remade. But
I mean, some of our movies we've watched definitely should have been remade.
well, some of them were better, but that doesn't necessarily mean it means it needed to be remade.
All these unabridged versions of movies.
Right. Like, I don't necessarily think, like, once again, I don't think any movie needs to be remade. It's just a matter of, was it worth it?
Well,
that's how I look at it.
It definitely needed
Like,
to be remade.
It didn't need to be remade, though. Was Heat better than LA Takedown? Absolutely. But did it need to happen? No. But it is better, so yes, it added value. And that's my point is, my point is, this podcast isn't about saying, like, did it have to be remade? It's was it worth it? And I unequivocally say that this one was worth watching. I think it's worth watching. If you're a fan of the series, I think this one is worth watching.
I think, because I've seen the internet, they're kind of people. It seems like people that like the original Child's Play, they don't like how this one is.
It's weird. Like, I'm seeing like 50-50 on reviews of people loving it, and a lot of people are like, I'm not seeing anybody straight up trash the movie.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing a lot of positive buzz on it. So yeah, I mean, I think we more or less talked this one to death. I think, I'm definitely on the camp that this was like a decent remake and, did enough different. I think Alex is kind of in the middle, and Double D sounds like a no.
No, I mean,
but I think Double D.
Like I said, I don't disagree with you, right? It did well for itself, and it's not a bad movie. I just think I prefer the original.
Yeah, okay, but it's a valid remake, though.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I guess we all are in agreement. We're not necessarily, and this podcast isn't about deciding if the remake is better than the original. It's just, was it worth it? And I do think it's worth it, and I think that's ultimately what it comes down to is, yeah, it's not.
It holds its own merit.
It holds its own. It's not worse. It's not. Yeah, exactly right. So I think that's pretty much it. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to everybody who's listened to the episode. Check out everything that's MDXpods related on MDXpods.com. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Instagram's pretty much where we do most of our stuffs. Check out our other great podcast, Ruined My Childhood, with me and Kat. And if you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/MDXpods and chip in $1 or $2, whatever you can, and it helps support the show. Thanks, guys.
This is the end, friend.
Are we having fun yet?
Chucky. Child's Play. Bye.